Welcome back to Everything But the Lesson Plan, the podcast where we talk about the parts of education they don't always prepare us for, the human parts. Today's episode is one of those stories that reminds us why this work matters, not just to students, but to the educators who show up every day, even when life feels heavy. My guest today, Mr. Julian Gardner. He's an engineering teacher who recently stepped into his dream career and almost immediately was faced with a life changing cancer diagnosis. And yet, he keeps teaching, he keeps building, he keeps showing up for kids. This conversation is about resilience, hope, and what happens when your purpose becomes stronger than your pain. Welcome to the show, Julian. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me.
I have been looking forward to this conversation. I think we've been talking about this ever since last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, well, it's been a minute. It's been about a year. Yeah, about a year since I
Yeah.
started my journey. It started
Yes.
my journey. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. So tell us a little bit about your journey into education. How did you get into the job you are in now? You're an engineering teacher, correct?
Correct. So actually, I fell into it pretty much by accident. I
Mm-hmm.
had gotten laid off, and I took a year off from work, and I said I'm just going to relax, find me, and just relax a little bit. And then the job market sort of tightened up. I said, well, in the meantime, let me try and do some sub work, and see how that works. And I started subbing at the high schools in the area, the different high schools.
Yeah.
And I just really fell in love with it. I sort of had a good rapport with the kids and the teachers. And
Mm-hmm.
when I sub, I wasn't your typical sub. I didn't just sit behind the desk and,
No.
let them do what have you, So we had conversations, we had, if it was a topic that I knew about, we talked about it.
Yeah.
If it was American history, then I wonder what do you guys learned in American history, and then we talked about that. I had
Mm-hmm.
a class when I subbed for a class. It was a German class. They were learning German. So
Mm-hmm.
my thing was, hey, teach me some German.
Yeah.
So we kind of had that, going back and forth. And the schools that I subbed at, they kept telling me, I want you to come back. I want you to come back. And so they had this thing called like preferential sub or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they just kept calling me back, calling me back, calling me back. And then I happened on South Gwinnett, and I was in the library in the media center,
Mm-hmm.
and I was talking to the lady there, Miss Boney, and just talking, and she found out that I had a background in finance and
Mm-hmm.
business, and she said, I think we're looking for a business teacher.
Yeah.
So I got referred down to Miss Bess, the department chair,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't a business. I didn't go into the business area. I went into pre-calculus.
Oh,
Right, they had me as a long-term sub for pre-calculus.
calculus.
Now
Okay.
I haven't learned. I haven't taken calculus since about 40 years ago. You
Yeah.
know, and I got into the class and I
Mm-hmm.
told the kids, I said, "Listen, guys, I'm going to learn this thing with you."
Yeah.
Okay, and they were actually so impressed that I took the time to stick it out with these guys.
Yeah.
And go to the lesson plan. I try to stay 2 days ahead of them so I would get the lessons, I would
Yeah.
review it, I'd go over it, and then I'd present it to the class. You
Yeah,
know,
because it's tough because you were a long-term sub for the
for the pre-calculus.
yeah, and typically with long-term sub positions, it's because a teacher is out, maternity leave or sick leave
Right.
or something like that, and you've
Uh-huh.
got to find a person that can support that classroom. So it was good that you were able to fill in, but then you're killing it in engineering. Like I'm like he's showing off in this engineering class.
Yeah. Well, engineering I love. I love engineering because I spent over 2 decades in manufacturing. I was in manufacturing operations. I ran 3 plants, and I had people under me, engineers and human resources, supply chain, the whole 9 yards. And when I came into the engineering department, I started there first. Then I got another job, so I left. Right, so I left the engineering department. They brought somebody else in, and then I
Hmm.
came back. And that
Yeah.
person, I guess, didn't come back or what have you. So I fell right into the engineering department. And some of the kids I had for that short period, I have them again. And
Oh,
I
nice.
and the thing when I talked to Dr. Jordan, one of the things that he said was that he was looking for somebody who would be hands-on. They wanted this to be a
Mhm.
project-based engineering
Absolutely.
curriculum. So I said, no problem. Kids, they want to have fun. They want to build things, and I started, I have two rooms. I have one with the computers,
Yeah.
for my lessons and so on. And then I have the shop.
Yeah.
And a lot of these kids, they couldn't hold a screwdriver, never touched
Hmm.
a bandsaw,
Hmm.
none of that stuff. So my thing was, well, you know what, guys? I'm going to get you to the point where you feel comfortable around equipment and machinery and so on.
And these are high-tech classrooms. Like, tell me about one of the machines. I know you have 3D printers in there, and then you have other like laser engravers and
we
things
have
like that.
3D printers, we have laser engravers, I have banners, equipment to make banners.
Yes.
We have the miter saw, band saws. We have
Uh-huh.
all that sort of equipment, all
It
the
is
tools.
it is a fun
Yeah.
playroom.
So I'm
Okay?
gonna look
Like
forward to
we're
that.
learning and having fun on
Right,
as
right.
well.
I mean,
Okay?
and there are lectures because you have the curriculum. So what
Yes.
I try to do, I go through my lectures and we talk about whatever the topic is. We take they get their exams and so on and so forth, and then
Yeah.
we take a break. Our
Yeah.
break is that we're going to work on a project that relates
Hmm.
to what we were talking about, whether we're building cardboard bridges or we're building houses out
Hmm.
of wood or we're building dragsters or we're going to race down the hallway with CO2 charges or whatever the
Oh
case
my
is. Oh
goodness.
yeah, we uh and and
Yeah.
and the approach that I took this year is that I want them to design on the engineering software that we have. We have AutoCAD and Inventor and Tinkercad and so on. And these are young future engineers.
Hmm.
So in the field, these are the actual software that they would be using
They'll
in
be
the
using
field.
it.
You
Yeah.
know, so my
So
thing is, mhm,
go ahead.
I said, my thing is, don't be afraid of it. I'll
No.
teach you how to use it. And
Yeah.
then, at our level, then we'll go and rebuild it. And with
Yeah.
our engineering program here, there's three levels in the pathway. It's 3 years, and
Hmm.
each level is a full year. So
Hmm.
the first level is the foundations, just getting their feet wet.
Yeah.
The second level is your concept, a little more complicated. And then the third level is our application. That's our seniors, right? And they're actually currently designing. I made them design whatever they wanted to design.
Oh, okay.
I didn't give them any prompt. And I said, listen, guys, as long as you feel you could make it, I want you to design it in the software. And then if I sign off on it, we'll take it to the shop and you start to build it.
Oh, my
You know?
son would have loved that. My son, he did engineering at the other high school down the street, Grayson, and he actually
Okay.
went to school at Georgia Southern to become an engineer, and he
Ah,
got into foundry. So now he's I guess like a foundry engineer up in Chicago. So
okay.
I love these are for my listeners, these are called career technical education classes. And it just makes the experience in high school better because it gives the kids something that they can connect to, that they love
Right,
and they're
right,
passionate. Because not everybody goes to school and are like, oh my God, I'm excited about going to language arts class.
right,
Right.
right, right.
So, but you can balance that out by having these CTE classes that they can connect to and have a little
Uh-huh.
bit of fun. And like you said, you're giving them the space to be inventive and creative and all of that
Creative. Uh-huh.
things. So I love that you're doing that with your
Yeah.
students.
And engineering, like I tell the kids, one of the first thing we talk about is that engineers, you're solving problems.
Yes.
You're problem solvers. And I'll get the kids that are complaining about, well, Mr. Gardner, I can't stand math. I can't
Mm-hmm.
stand chemistry. And my question is why?
Yeah.
I do a
Yeah.
lot of whys,
That's
why can't
good.
you stand it? And they'll tell me, and I'll stop the class and we'll talk about that for a minute. Now, why is it that you don't like math? Why is it you don't like this? And I said, you know what each one of those classes have in common? You're solving problems.
That's
You
right.
know, I told that to my guys when I did pre-calculus. I said, I don't care if the Pythagorean theory in and out, and x minus z equals that to that. I said the thing is, what I want you to be able to do is solve problems because that's what
Mm-hmm.
high school is. High school is wiring your brains to be able to solve problems.
Yeah.
So whether
That's
it's
right.
math, whether it's chemistry, whether it's biology, or whether it's engineering, you're solving problems, and
Yeah.
that's what I try to get across to the kids. And they say, Mr. Gardner, I didn't look at it like that. I've never looked at it like that. So,
Yeah.
that's something for you to ponder, So
Well, they definitely need you. So I'm glad that you are there. So once you got on at your current school,
mhm.
you were enjoying teaching, you were having a great time, and you almost immediately after starting, you received some news that kind of
Wow.
changed some things for you, right?
It
So
did, it
can
did.
you share what was going on about that?
Yeah, so what happened last year,
Mm-hmm.
last December, actually a little bit before December, I get diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you hear the C word, your mind goes through all these different iterations and so on, because it's not something that really runs in the family.
Mm-hmm.
None of my immediate family that I know of came down with cancer, So I said, well,
Yeah.
how did this happen? And I started thinking about my time in the military, Camp Lejeune, where I was drinking that polluted water, whatever the case is,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so they finally decided, well, instead of doing the whole radiation and chemotherapy, which has a tendency the cancer has a tendency to come back, they said, we're going to take the cancer. We're just going to take it out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Lord. I said, okay. So December 10th, last year, they took it out. Okay.
Okay.
And the thing was, I was at school, and fortunately, that was right before the Christmas break.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was out for 5 weeks. I was out for
Mm-hmm.
5 weeks. It was a very painful situation. But
Yeah.
as you can imagine, I just started, so I didn't accrue enough PTO.
Mm-hmm.
So I just didn't have the time. So they
Yeah.
said, okay, don't worry about it. I'm worried about am I gonna lose the job? I really love this thing
Yeah.
here, da 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 da. And they said no, because Saul was very supportive. And they've been very
Yeah.
supportive of me from day one.
And
And
that's good.
and I tell you, I took the time off. And here's the thing: when I came back to school in January, I
Mm-hmm.
walked into my classroom, and there was a big banner on my wall that said "Welcome back." And all my
Mm-hmm.
students signed little notes, sticky notes, and placed on the banner. It was
Mm-hmm.
completely filled. I tell you,
I
I
love
cried like a
that.
baby, right? I said, even some of my troublemaker kids, wrote a little sticky note, welcome back, Mr. Gardner, this, that, and the other. And I tell you, it really touched me at that point.
Yeah.
And I thought everything was good. And I remember
Mhm.
going back and reading the yearbook. I bought a yearbook the year before, and I remember reading all the little comments that my students wrote. And one of the things that stood out to me is that several of them wrote, "Thank you, Mr. Gardner, for providing a safe space for me." Because
Mhm.
they'll come in my class and they'll talk to me, tell me what's going on, and da da da, and I'll refer them to their counselor. I'll just an ear to listen to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I went through that whole thing, and 90 days later, I had a sore throat,
Mhm.
and then my tonsils was inflamed. And I said, okay, salt water goggle, that'll take care of it, this, that, and the other. It didn't work. I go to the doctor. They gave me I think it was some antibiotics and some steroid or some what have you, and it didn't go down. And I went back to the doctor again, and the nurse practitioner, she said, you know what? You need to go get a CAT scan. And I'm
Mm.
like, CAT scan for what? You know, she said, it doesn't look right. So I went and got the CAT scan. And of course, the doctor comes in the room And they said, Mr. Gardner, I got bad news. And I said,
Mm.
oh, my Lord, well, what is it now? He said, well, you've got cancer in your tonsils.
Oh,
Oh,
God.
Lord, at that particular point, I just, I said, you know what? I don't even know what to think at that point.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to Google, what's the remedy, what's the prognosis to this, that, and the other. And
Yeah.
oh, Lord, it was tough.
That was a
And
lot.
now I'm thinking, what am I going to do now? Now the prostate is gone. Now you're telling me I got cancer in my throat. And my biggest concern was the treatment because I've got, from being in two war zones when I was younger, I've got a little PTSD and
Yeah.
anything that bothers my throat, it throws me into these anxiety issues. And I said, oh God, I'm not going to make it this time. This time, I just know it's my throat. I'm going to feel that in my throat. I'm just not going to make it. And the doctor said, no, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
We could treat it and this, that, and the other. Um, and then I started. So that was in March.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so by May, I started chemotherapy and radiation.
Mm-hmm.
It's uh, it's 7 weeks, a 7 week course where I had radiation every single day, and I had chemotherapy once a week. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd rush after work. The chemotherapy I had to take off every Wednesday because I was during the daytime. But the
Yeah.
radiation I had to go right after work. So I rushed down to the VA hospital every day. And I tell you, I started out at 268 pounds. Big,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And my class, they knew what I was going through because I told them, I said, listen, I'm here. I'm not leaving you guys. I'm going to be
Yeah.
here. I'm coming every day as long as I can. And let me tell you, I made it through till the very last day, May 16th.
Mm-hmm.
And the following Monday was they're going to have their finals. And I wanted to be there for the finals and so on. But May 16th, I I went and I ended up getting admitted to the hospital. And
Mm.
so I didn't, I, I, I so wanted to go to their graduation,
I
because I
know
want
you
to see my
did.
kids graduate. I told them before, I said, listen, guys, I'm here till my ninth graders graduate. You
Yes.
know, I'm going to be with you guys. I'll probably be here a little bit long because I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I ended up in the hospital and I couldn't eat. But sadly enough, my kids saw me starting to deteriorate maybe the
Yeah.
last 2 weeks before the end. And they'll
Yeah.
come in and say, Mr. Gardner, are you okay? And I'm like, yes, I'm fine. I started losing the weight because I couldn't eat. And then, Mr. Gardner, you have to eat something. I said, hey, it won't go
Yeah.
down. But I still, I'm still manage, I still function. And and I ended up going into the hospital. And I spent about 10 days in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, that was some of the worst 10 days of my life because the
Oh.
chemotherapy, it make you sick and you lose your appetite. But the radiation, it completely damages your throat because
Mm-hmm.
you're getting sunburn on the inside of your throat and the outside of
Mm.
your neck and all. And it gets to be very painful. And every day you lay down, they pin your head to a table and they hit you with the beams. And I cry. I've never cried so much in my life. And the sad part is actually,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
because you go through it, not just you, right?
Yeah.
You go through your family.
Mm-hmm.
And my kids, they watch me and they stop crying, my wife.
Yeah.
So,
'Cause that's tough.
but yeah,
That is
so it's
tough.
but they were there. They were there.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I couldn't drive myself anymore. So my kids, they'll take turns and they'll take off from work and they'll
Yeah.
take me to the hospital. They'll take me to the hospital. They'll get me back home. My wife, she'll take off to get me to the hospital, get me back home.
Yeah.
Um, I'm in the hospital. I've got tubes and IVs everywhere. And I'm just sitting there and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make this. And I tell you one thing, at one point, I said, God, just don't wake me up tomorrow because I can't take this
Mm.
anymore, right?
Yeah.
Because mentally you're exhausted,
You
physically
are.
you're exhausted. And
Mm.
I remember one of my worst days, and I turned around and I looked, And who was standing there but my AP, Miss King.
Yeah,
Miss
Miss
King came to
King.
visit me, you know?
Yeah.
And what she doesn't know is that when she left that day, I cried. And then another day I turned around, Miss Best was there. You know,
Yeah.
Miss Best came to visit me, you know.
Yeah.
So that kind of gave me like an uplift. I knew they were
Yeah.
very supportive, but you
Hmm.
know, for them to come out, I know Miss King came from church and she lives a quite a good distance. And you know, that
That
kind of
was that was God's timing,
yeah,
right? I
and
believe that.
because I just the boss, I just like listen, I can't take it anymore. I called my son. I said, listen, you know where all my paperwork, where my paperwork, because you know, me and my wife, we travel together. So I've got like my, you know, like, if I die letter, you know, that list
Yeah.
who to call and where everything is. He knows where it is. You know,
Yeah.
I said, son, man, go and take that letter and just make sure you have it because I don't think I'm gonna make it out of this one, you know. And
And you did. And you came back.
they sent me home. They sent me home, and I went back again because I got so weak
Yeah.
that you know I ended up going back to the hospital again. This is over the summer, so that's the good thing about teaching. I had that whole 2 month summer period,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and I went back to the hospital. They kept me for another week. Then they said, okay, you could go home. So I went home. And then a couple of days later, I'm dehydrated again because I still can't eat now. And I haven't eaten anything since May, right? And
May
I'm
of
into June.
2025.
hmm And I'm into June. I'm into July now, right? And they finally put me on a feeding tube, but I wasn't getting enough nutrients, and the weight just kept dropping off, kept dropping
Yeah.
off. And I lost the first month. I lost 40 pounds, and then I lost another 40 pounds after that. So when you drop that much weight so quickly, you're just completely weak. Now,
Mm-hmm.
my daughter, love her to death, right? She's 29 now, right?
Mm-hmm.
My daughter, she stays in my pocket, right? But she's not a real touchy feely person. Like, you know, I can't get any hugs and this, that, and the other, right?
Sounds
But I
like
remember
mine.
one day she took me to the hospital and I was in so much pain and I was coughing, I was heaving, and I mean the heartburn that was coming up. I remember her reaching over and rubbing my back. I said, oh, is that my Ashley rubbing her daddy's back? Because she felt really bad, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
then my son, he was graduating from high school, Grayson, as a matter of fact. And I told the doctor, I said, listen, I am not missing his graduation. So you're going to have to let me out, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we went back and forth. They said, okay, Mr. Guy, we'll let you out for one day to go to the graduation. You come right back. I said, okay,
Mm-hmm.
fine. So they let me out. I went to his graduation, and my big son took me, and I watched my son walk across. I was so proud of this kid. I
Yes.
watched him walk across the stage, and I couldn't stay. So I went back to the hospital and I'm in the emergency room waiting to get admitted. And I collapsed in the emergency room.
Mm.
And my son, I said, no,
Wow. Wow. Wow.
he's not,
Wow.
you know, he's a real quiet guy, you know, and you
Yeah.
know, he's my eldest. And he just didn't know what to do. You know, he was just, you know, his father just fell out on the floor.
Yeah.
And you know, they tried to get me up, put me in a gurney, took me back. I was completely dehydrated. And they got me back admitted again. But you know, and I feel bad because it's like you put your family um, through this ordeal, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you start thinking it's not really fair to these guys, you know. But
Mm-hmm.
but they were there for me, you
They were
know,
there for you, and
and
that's what
you
matters.
know. And you know, and I got the visits from my kids and the wife. She was there almost every day to make
Yeah.
sure I'm okay. My big son to this day, he still checks on me. You know, he makes sure, Daddy, you got water, you got your food, did you eat? You know, if I'm downstairs, he'll come and he'll check and say, make sure he's okay. So I did that. I get back to work,
Yes. And
get
let
in
me ask
the
you something. Let me ask you something here. Because, that's, I've heard part of your story, Julian, but I've never heard the full thing as you shared here. And I'm thinking to myself, that is a tremendous amount of stuff to have to go through. I mean, I think the cancer diagnosis was in 2024, correct?
Right. The first one was 2020, and the 2024.
And then you had 2025 and you had
Hmm.
went through all of that stuff. It brings me to tears. It's bringing you to tears,
Yeah.
right? And so, and you chose to come back to the classroom. Most people would just step away and just focus on their treatment and just focus on themselves and their healing. But you said, I've got to get back to my students. Why?
Right.
Why did
Because
you choose that?
that is my treatment. That
That's
is
your
my
treatment.
healing. You see,
Hmm.
when you look at young faces and you see that they look up to you for advice, for guidance, right? For some discipline, it it gives you like a warm feeling. It gives you a feeling that you're actually needed and folks care about you. What I didn't tell you is that some of the kids, they would email me while I was out, to check on me. Their parents would send me emails because they told their parents, Mr. Gardner is going through this. So they send me
Yeah,
emails. They say, how are you doing? Praying for you, this, that, and the other. But that was my therapy.
that was your
Because
therapy.
if I just stayed home, I would just dwell on what was happening.
Hmm.
And they gave me the inspiration to come and say, you know what? I've got something to offer. Because I've always said, I really think that teaching and cultivating young minds was my actual calling. Yes, I spent
Hmm.
over 2 decades in manufacturing operations, but you don't get that. You don't
Yeah.
get that sort of love from the industry
Hmm.
as you get from these kids. And I think that's one of the reasons why I came back, because I came back and I remember the first day, and I Dr. Jordan asked me to say a couple of things when we had the teachers meeting. And I remember, you know, I was so weak, but I said, I have 2 weeks to get a little bit stronger. And
Hmm.
every day I was getting a little bit stronger, a little bit stronger. I just couldn't eat. And I remember telling the teachers that, you know what? We go through life going from point A to point B and doing a whole bunch of different things, but we never really stop and enjoy the little things. I said,
Hmm.
what I would give right now for a glass of ice cold water. And I
I
said,
remember you saying, and you know what? I remember you saying
oh,
that,
really?
and I cried.
I said,
Because I did not realize at that moment that you were not able to eat or have anything, and had that it had been so long.
yeah,
And I said to myself, this man is just wanting a glass of water, and we
it's a
sitting up there
glass of water.
complaining about stuff every day.
And, you know,
Are we,
and I try, and that's one of the things I try to let my kids know that, things get hard. I mean,
Yes.
life gets hard, but you have to stop, think,
Hmm.
enjoy. I tell them, I said, enjoy yourself
Yes.
responsibly. I said, but
Hmm.
enjoy. I said, listen, I said, you're 16 years old now, you're 17. I said, you know what? Next thing you turn around, you're gonna be 27. Then you're gonna be 37. Then you're
Hmm.
gonna be 47. I said, I
Hmm.
still remember, as old as I am, I still remember what I was doing at 17.
Me too.
So enjoy yourself, enjoy life. And I think that's the reason why I came back, because I said, you know what? I'm not finished. I'm
You're
not
not.
finished. You know,
You're not.
I, I,
And
I'm
those students love you.
I'm
Oh
just
my
starting.
gosh.
And I look at these kids as my own, are my grandkids,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you know, and one of the things I tell people is that, I don't talk at my students, I talk to them, you know,
Hmm.
and these kids nowadays, they have, well, we all had it, but they have so many problems, so many issues that you
Hmm.
don't know what they're bringing into the classroom. And
Yeah.
if I see you and you look a little bit out of sorts, you know, I'll grab it. So listen, come outside for a minute. What's going on?
Yeah.
And
That's
they'll
good.
start to talk, and I keep tissue on my desk, and I keep tissue, and they start to crying about this is what's going on, and so on and so forth. And sometimes all they need is just somebody to just listen.
Listen, that's it. That's
Just
it.
listen. And that's the reason why I came back.
Hmm.
And I came back, and I remember when class started, a couple of my kids came by, a couple of young ladies, and they saw me and they started crying.
Mm-hmm.
because they were used to seeing big Mr. Gardner.
Yeah.
And now I'm just a shell. I didn't get a
Yeah.
chance to buy new clothes yet, so everything
Yeah.
was just hanging on me. And I remember saying, listen, I'm going to be all right. Holy crap, I'm going
Yeah.
to be all right. It's going to take
Yeah.
a minute, but I'm going to be all right. And yeah, so
And
that's,
this is great. Let me tell you why. Because in this conversation that we've had, I don't know, maybe what, 20 minutes or so, just all of these points right here. And I want people, our audience, to understand, our teachers, our teacher leaders, our district leaders, everyone who listens to the show. And you know what? Sometimes just people who aren't in education listen to the show. But the few of the things that you said today was just, it was about hope. It
Mhm.
was about support, not only from your family, but the way the school showed up for you. It
Right.
was about you getting back to your kids, your students, because that was healing for you. Um, it was just about just being there for people and not taking life for granted. Um,
Yeah, you really
that
can't.
this is good.
You have to enjoy it. When I sit outside now, I listen to the birds. I
Hmm.
listen to the birds. I plant my garden. And I
Hmm.
water it and watch them
That's
starting to
self-care.
bloom. And I tell you, and the kids, and they are something else. And when
Yeah.
you really sit down and talk to them, I try to talk to them all on. I greet them at the door when they come in. We joke a little bit. We have our class, and then you know what? If I hear you talking about something, it might not even be on topic, but let's take a minute. Let's take a break. Let's talk about this for a second. And I
Hmm.
get all the kids engaged and they talk, and sometimes they debate and so on and so forth. And after a minute, I said, okay, all right, now let's get back to work.
Yes.
But you
Yeah.
kind of
But you
give them
gave them
that
their play.
eh,
That's why you said, I think you said earlier that kids consider your classroom a safe space.
safe space. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And we talk, and I said, the only thing I require is that you don't disrespect me. I will never disrespect you in class, and you don't disrespect your classmate.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what. And I've been fortunate enough, but I have not had any student disrespect me. And I said maybe it's because I'm so old, right? I'm like a grandpa. But we
No.
talk and we talk about, and I used to tell them all the time. I said, listen, explain to me why you have your phone. Okay, if you can make a good argument to me why you need that phone right at this particular moment, I'll let you keep it. All right,
Hmm.
I'll let you. But explain to me why do you think you need that phone?
Oh,
And they're like, Mr. Garner, you're absolutely right. I said,
yeah.
okay, get at this thing for a while. So I don't beat them, but so they know. They know.
Yeah.
They know
They
they're not
know.
supposed to have it. But that's one of the biggest challenges that teachers face, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And but even you say, you know, when you talk about hope and perseverance and
Hmm.
things that you're going through, even as teachers, I would tell other teachers, like, listen, you know, times get hard, you know,
Yeah.
you're just gonna have to say, you know what, I see the light at the end of the rainbow. And I'm gonna use
Hmm.
my support team, whether it's home, like you said, family, or my work family, right? I consider South my work family, right?
Yeah.
Or my kids. You'll be surprised the amount of parents and kids tell me that, Mr. Gardner, as soon as you're able to eat, my mom says she's gonna make you a plate.
You gonna have a meal plan for the month,
I said, I said,
okay?
I said, I'm gonna put all that weight back on again. But hey, listen, I will gladly enjoy it,
Yes.
And but so when I come back and I worked for a little while, and I was feeling pretty good, I was getting a little stronger, I go to the doctor again. I said, something's not right with my toe. I said, something's
Hmm.
not right with my toe. I go to the doctor right after work. So I
Yeah.
get my work clothes on, my slacks and all. And I go and I sit down and take me into the waiting room. And in the emergency room, they looked at me and says, oh, you're not going home tonight. I said,
Uh-oh.
what do you mean I'm not going home tonight? He says, your toe is infected.
Oh,
Your part of
Lord.
your toe as infected. I said,
Mm-mm.
really? I said, oh my gosh. So that led to what? They amputated my toe.
Oh,
Right? Oh, you
really?
did? Yeah, they so I had
When
my
did
toe.
that happen, Mr. Gardner?
That happened and right after I got back to work. You know,
Oh my gosh.
they took my
Wow.
toes. I spent a week in the hospital. They took my toe. I said, "Oh my God, what else is there?" They cancer
But you know
twice,
what?
amputated toe. You know,
But you are so positive. And
and
that's what I keep telling you when I see you. You are just the most positive, happiest person I've ever met. And I'm like, this is what people need to see, that you are going through all of this, but you keep a smile on your face. You're not giving up. And I think that's kind of the lesson in this story and in this episode is that no matter what these battles are, and a lot of them are silent battles, that you've got to find something to latch on to, that little piece of hope that will
you
help
have to,
you to go keep moving forward.
or else you'll find yourself at the top of a bridge, looking down, saying, I'm about to jump."
Mhm.
You've got to look for something. Yeah, you've got to find the silver lining because
Yes.
even when they told me they're going to take my toe off, of course I went through a little heartache for a minute, and I said, you know what, guys, just do what you got to do. If it's going to keep me from, I said, better a toe than a foot,
Yeah.
right? That's how I
Yeah.
looked at it. So I came back to work with a boot on, with a cane,
Yeah.
and I remember Colonel of the JROTC, he said, man, you were an inspiration. He said, because you got people that have a tummy ache and want to lay out for 3 days,
Yeah.
you know? And I
You
said,
keep showing up for
I
your
said,
kids.
I said, listen, I've got my lesson plan together and I need to be teaching these kids.
Yes.
Okay. So I tailor it to me and my students, right? And I feel bad if they're sitting around saying, where's Mr. Gardner today?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's why I keep coming back. I said, I'm here for my kids, my
Yeah.
family, my
Yeah.
wife, my kids, and I am also here for my students,
Yeah.
even when I had the prostate, even had the prostate cancer and they took it out. About 5 days later, my son was playing in the state championship at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium for Grayson
Mhm.
football, right?
Yeah.
And you think I was going to miss that?
Mm-mm.
I
No.
was there with my cane and
Yeah.
my bag hanging up under my pant leg, and
Yeah.
I was at the game, you
That's
know,
good.
and
Well,
it's like I said, the biggest thing right now is that I don't get much sleep as I would like because since I can't swallow,
yeah.
I was having to clear my throat and bring stuff up because it stops right here in my throat. I
Yeah.
can't even get a sip of water down.
Yeah.
It's so bad that I can't burp.
Yeah.
I can't belch because the air cannot come back up.
Yeah.
So I get up every 45 minutes or so at night, and I've got to clear my throat, and I'm gonna go back and lay down.
Wow.
And I get up,
Gosh.
I
Wow.
check on my kids, I look at my ring camera, make sure the cars are in the driveway, so I know everybody's home, that kind of
You're
thing.
entertaining yourself.
Yeah, and I jump back in the bed.
Get
So
your
yeah,
rest,
so it's been a struggle, a challenge, but
but you're
if
making through.
and
You're
if I
making
didn't
through.
have, my South family and the family here, it might have been a whole different story.
Yeah. Well,
But
you
you
know
have to keep,
what? I think this is, just kind of great to end on as far as the community support, your family support, and what keeps you going, even though you're battling all of those things. And I just want to say personally, we admire you. We just, for me, I love what you're doing with the students, and I love how you guys are just you rebuilt that engineering program over there. And so I just want to say, just definitely keep going and keep doing this for yourself, for your students as well.
try. I try. And it's like I said, it's a labor of love, as they call it.
Yeah.
I come to work to have fun.
Yeah.
I come in, I wear my slacks and my polo shirts. But when we go into the lab, it's jeans and sneakers. you
Yeah.
know. And I tell you, I let these guys go and just watching them develop,
Mm-hmm.
watching it, especially let's say the young ladies who are, at first I was so really hesitant about touching the equipment because it's a saw and it be dangerous if you're not careful. And just
Yeah.
watch them now where I can leave them. I'm in the room with them, but I don't have to stand over them. They
Yeah.
go and they grab the wood or they grab whatever they need and they start to design and cut. And I just walk around and give them advice and give them tips and so on. So I enjoy it.
Well, I love that. Well, you know what, Mr. Gardner, your story just reminds us that teaching is not just a profession,
No,
it's
it's not.
actually a calling. And
Yeah.
sometimes it becomes the very thing that actually saves us. So thank you for your courage, your vulnerability, and for showing our students what real strength looks like.
No, thank you. I thank you and the students and the staff,
Yes, yes.
'cause it's a big support network,
Yeah, yeah.
in itself. So
I love that. So, to every educator listening, your presence matters more than
abs-
you know. And as always, keep showing up, keep believing, and keep thriving.
absolutely, absolutely.